Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are about 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Caroline Hyde here, counting you down to the close, here to help us take us beyond the bell. Our global simulcast partners, we're joined right now by Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec, bringing together our Bloomberg Television, Radio, and YouTube audiences worldwide to parse through the moments of the day. And the moments of the day, for a while, the narrative here, Carol, was the fact that you had the NASDAQ down significantly on the day. At the same time, you had the Dow Jones Industrial Average at a record high. That has now all been erased right now. All the major indices lower on the day.
Yeah, I was just going to go right there. What happened to that Dow record here? 313 points, almost 314 points at its high, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. But again, you could see a bunch of selling here, Tim, really in this last half hour of trading.
Yeah, though tech still the laggard and the NASDAQ underperforming the other major indices. Tech just getting beat up. Commodity prices rising. Equity investors increasingly concerned that inflation, these rising prices could derail growth of some of these high-flying tech companies. Tesla getting slammed. Apple getting slammed. Caroline?
ARC innovation as well, the frothier parts of the market, even those call options coming down significantly in volume. It feels as though, well, some of the speculative corners of the market coming lower, but you're notable that the NASDAQ having its worst day since March the 18th. So we really are getting a pull down, even though volumes a little bit remain ticking higher on the day.
Yeah, ticking higher on the day, but as they tick higher, those volumes tick higher, you're seeing the prices go lower here. This is going to be a day of reversals here, not only reversals in the equity market, but remember, a reversal in the commodities space. We saw coming in today, oil was higher, gasoline was higher, copper was at record highs, iron ore, all that sort of got dialed back here as we got a little bit deeper into the trading day. You're hearing the closing bells in your ear right now. It's going to take a while for these numbers to settle, but here's what you're looking at right now. The S&P 500 right around 4188. That's going to be down about 1%. The NASDAQ composite right around 13,400. That's down 2.6%. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which as Carol was just talking about, at one point was up above 35,000, going to close below that, 34,745. That's down a fraction of a percent here, basically about 0.1%, we'll call it here. The Russell 2000 also lower on the day by about 2.6%.
Yeah, I was going to go right there. I mean, nothing could really hide here in the last few minutes of trading. As you mentioned, those small caps also taking it on the chin. But, again, it brings back, Caroline, those conversations about, the tech names that have had such a tremendous run. And you do wonder about investors just kind of pulling back. We'll see whether or not tomorrow they come back and think maybe there's a buying opportunity.
When you dig in, though, Carol, to within the S&P 500, what was up, there are still some industry groups that managed to push on higher. I'm going to use a leaf out of Taylor's book, but she always called them the bond proxies. We are seeing utilities push higher, up 1.4%. Telecoms on the upside. Real estate, too, doing well, up 0.7%. Household goods, products, Kroger's, some of the retailers doing pretty fine when it comes to overall sentiment. They managed to cling on to the green, but overall what led us into the S&P 500 closing down by 0.6%? Autos, ugly. We're seeing autos off by more than 5 percentage points. Semiconductors, well, chip makers. It's interesting, guys, that both those auto companies and those chip companies once again getting a hearing from the Biden administration May 20th. We understand they're once again going to be trying to tackle the supply chain issue, but we're hitting it where it hurts. Technology, software, some of the names, Tim, Snowflake and the like, really on the downside. But Carol, I mean, we've got to dig into what were the individual names that were on the high and low side.
Yeah, and let's see if some of these names that I picked out as gainers are still gainers here at the closing bell. This was your number one gainer in the S&P 500. Viatris, and this is a company that had a first quarter loss, revenue increasing, reaffirming its 2021 revenue outlook. It was a top S&P 500 gainer, and it did hold on to that gain, up about 6.3% here at the close. Number two gainer, Live Nation. We talked about this last week. It's definitely one of your reopening stocks. It, too, was a top S&P 500 gainer, and Live Nation upgraded to buy over at Jefferies on valuation and recovery. They raised the price target to 96 a share, and you can see that stock up about more than 3% today. Home Depot, just wanted to mention, it was at a record high. It held on to that gain, so just a hair higher in today's session. And number four, just want to look at MoneyGram. Romaine, putting that on his analyst call list. It's a micro cap. It's had quite a run this year, up 50%, gaining another 4%, Tim, in today's trade.
Oh, Carol, not that hard to find decliners today. Again, a tech story, specifically Alphabet, the parent company of Google, and Facebook, both being downgraded by Citigroup. Citigroup warning about the outlook for digital advertising. Both Google and Facebook were downgraded downgraded from buy to neutral. Google, Alphabet, I should say, GOOGL, finishing the day down just around 2.5%. Facebook down more than 4%, though. And then you have the Workhorse, the EV company, down more than 14% today. The first quarter sales missed estimates. They were light, and I should say they were really light. Investors reacting by sending shares significantly lower. Novavax, the pharmaceutical company, down more than 8.5%. Caroline, this after the Washington Post said the company may not look for emergency use authorization for its COVID vaccine until June. That would be quite the delay, Caroline.
Quite the delay, Tim. And for our TV, radio, YouTube audiences, we're now going to dig in kind of cross-asset, because I want to go to what is also falling when you look at the commodities space. Because what's so ironic is today we were all worrying about inflation, in particular, but spurred by what has been the powerhouse of the commodity super cycle. But today, well, actually, they kind of fell. We saw iron ore, one of the real areas of froth that we've seen of late, actually down 4% on the day when I'm looking at this particular part of the commodity spectrum. Zinc off by 2.3%, gas off by a percentage point. Interestingly, we had all of that worry about the cyber attack on that all-important Colonial Pipeline that initially pushed gasoline prices up more than 4%, but actually they closed the day basically flat. Gas oil currently up 0.6%, Brent crude down by 0.2%. We weave in what happens on the foreign exchange, because usually when you get a day of pulling back on commodities, it's because the dollar is higher. The dollar did pair its losses, having really sunk on Friday on the back of that jobs report. Today it closed by about 0.1% lower. On the higher side, well, I'm in London, I'm going to talk about it. The Great British Pound, check this out, up a percentage point. Highest since the dollar since February. Why? Political risk just dying down a little bit. We had local elections. The Scottish independence vote looks a little bit further off right now. So British pound up a percentage point, and I'm looking at sovereign bonds getting the bid in Italy. Yields down by some 2 percentage points, but in the US, yields actually pushing higher on the 30-year on the long end. Romaine.
All right, breaking news. Brooks Automation to split into 2 independent companies. Of course, this is the semiconductor equipment maker. It makes a lot of tools for people to make semiconductor equipment. Is now going to split into 2 companies. One company that will be focused on the semiconductor industry, and another company that's going to be focused on the life sciences industry. Of course, a lot of people have pointed to biotech and life sciences as sort of the next tech, that this is the next big thing. Interesting decision to do this. Of course, this comes on a day where Brooks Automation dropped about 10%, excuse me, because of broader concerns here about what's going on in the chip space, as well as about valuations as well. Those shares right now in after hours trading are halted, but once again, Brooks going to split into 2 independent companies.
You know, you mentioned biotech, and that was certainly one name that we're seeing in the after hours trading higher. We're talking about Novavax coming out with their earnings. First quarter loss, I should say a loss, not earnings. First quarter loss per share of $3.05. That compares with an estimated loss of share of $3.60. First quarter revenues, a big beat, $447 million versus an estimate of $234. Keep in mind, in the regular trade, this stock was down almost 9% after Washington Post said that the biotech may not seek emergency use authorization for its closely watched COVID-19 vaccine until June at the earliest. But the stock trading higher in the after hours on probably that revenue number, Tim.
Yeah, shares up by 2.8% right now, just about $4.50 in the after hours right now. Let's talk a little bit about commodities and the surge in commodities that we have seen of late. Bloomberg Intelligence commodities analyst Mike McGlone coming on Quick Take earlier today and again on Bloomberg Radio, Romaine, saying that the cure for high commodity prices is higher prices. It sounds like, Caroline, he's repeating what Fed Chair Jerome Powell has said about higher prices, transitory. That's certainly what Mike McGlone thinks it's going to be. The big question is, how long is it going to last?
And sort of interesting takes on whether you're hedging against inflation by buying into commodities, and then that gets commodities to go higher. So then you worry about inflation that little bit more. But of course, ironically, on the day, commodities actually were lower in general. But that inflation number, I feel, Romaine, that the whole market is anticipating Wednesday when that number, CPI number, is going to come out.
Well, it'll be interesting to see whether those inflationary pressures we've been seeing with regards to the inputs, whether that actually feeds into the consumer side. But when people talk about this being transitory, the thing is the companies aren't talking about it being transitory.
Right.
And you're hearing from a lot of analysts saying now that this is really much more structural, as a lot of the industrial metals are rallying not only because of the sort of recovery here, but also in this idea that the EV and the renewable energy space is highly dependent on a lot of these materials, and they need that if this industry is going to be what a lot of people think it's going to be, Carol.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Hey guys, just want to mention Roblox coming out. Roblox, excuse me. It's their first earnings as a publicly held company.
Are they profitable?
First quarter loss per share of 46 cents. First quarter revenue of $387 million. I mean, they've had quite a run. They're up about 45% from their IPO. And you could see at least first blush that investors liking what, again, we're just getting a few headlines on that company. Stock up about 1.4% here in the after hours. Caroline.
Investing in their business. The CEO of Roblox, David, really talking about how they're seeing long-term investments that we will be building on a human co-experience platform, Tim, that enables shared experiences among billions of users. I mean, Tim, you're our resident guy who knows all things gaming.
I'm no good when it comes to Roblox, but I got to tell you, this is absolutely has been huge during the pandemic. The big question is to what extent kids and older folks alike are going to continue to play it when we are not when we do not have to be inside as much. But the company's growth just over the past couple of years has been phenomenal.
I'm going to be outside. I don't know about you guys, but I want to be outside.
Not in your virtual world, Carol.
Yeah, all right, not in a virtual world. All right, that's going to do it for our cross-platform coverage on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg TV, and Bloomberg YouTube, of course. We'll be back again, same place, same time tomorrow.